A month later and it's still hard to fathom. We got a new Smash game coming this year, guys. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is checking off all the right boxes for so many people. Even the competitive side is getting more attention than usual. From a faster yet not breakneck pace of play, to extra visual touches in 1v1 matches, to finally having the option to turn off stage hazards. And that's just what we know of so far. Needless to say, we've had a lot of pleasant surprises so far. Yet among all of that is a newcomer that was, let's be honest, inevitable. Pretty much everyone had the Inklings pegged to get into Smash as soon as the opportunity arose, for understandable reasons. The new Squid Kids on the block hail from a breakout new franchise and bring with them a fighting style and fashion sense all their own, and it makes for a really cool new addition to the roster despite how unsurprising they are. But now that they're in, how do they actually fight? That's what we're here for now. Let's pour over everything we can regarding the Inklings moveset and overall playstyle to paint as clear a picture as we can of what they'll be like when us not-so-fresh folks who weren't able to play the demo finally have the full game in our hands. Bear in mind, this analysis is going to focus more on each move's animations and potential applications in battle, and less on exact damage rates and frame data, since such things are subject to change between now and December. But trust me, there's still a lot worth taking a look at. Ready? Okay. Let's roll. To begin, we gotta go over how they look, because dressing for success is kind of a big deal for these guys. And I'm not just saying that. Each individual alternate color has their own personal outfit. Like with other Avatar characters before them, the Inklings have 4 male and 4 female alts to choose from. The classic orange female Inkling taking points as the default, with the blue male Inkling right behind her. Ultimate seems to be pulling mainly from Splatoon 1, as you can see. Though there are a few nods to Splatoon 2. For example, the magenta girl here does bear a passing resemblance to the one in that game's box art. These guys are dripping with the style of their home series, to where even their taunts are straight from Splatoon. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of Inkling dittos in the future starting off with a mutual booyah. Jury's still out on whether you can squid bag though. Moving around in Smash is also going to feel straight out of Splatoon, except even easier since now you can zip around in squid form without needing to be in your own ink. This gives the Inklings a very fast run, and using it to move back and forth and keep opponents guessing is going to be a big part of their playstyle. In the air though, they're actually quite floaty. This itself is a nod to the floaty jumps in Splatoon, and as a natural result, it means a couple things. On one hand, a slower fall speed will allow them to escape some combos that faster fallers would get caught in, but on the other, they'll have more difficulty landing, as opponents will have an easier time keeping them airborne. Interestingly enough, the Inklings bring not one, but 2 gimmicks to the table. Just like in Splatoon, many of their attacks draw from a finite supply of ink that is shown next to their icon in battle. Run out of ink, and some of their attacks get weaker, while others don't work at all. Managing your ink supply will be just as crucial in Smash as it is in Splatoon, so knowing when to replenish your ink, by holding B while shielding, will be key. Fortunately, in the E3 build, it only took about 2 seconds at most to top off your ink supply, so it won't be too hard to find time to spare. But that ink ain't just for show, because you can cover your enemies in it too. It pulls double duty of disrespecting your opponents by drenching them in your own bodily fluids, and adds a damage multiplier to any attack you land on anyone painted in your ink. As of the E3 build, said multiplier can reach up to 1.8 times damage on fully inked opponents, a truly impressive boost that takes the Inklings' otherwise lackluster damage output and makes them a force to be reckoned with, though the exact number is subject to change. And apparently it's a sliding scale, with less of a boost the less ink your target has on them. And the ink washes off over time, so you want to keep applying it to your foes to keep reaping the benefits. And it doesn't appear to affect the move's knockback. Well, not any more than the damage increase already does, since base damage is a factor in the formula that determines knockback, and you get the idea. Now let's check out the moveset proper, which turned out very different than what I and probably a lot of other people expected from a character from a third-person shooter. The Inkling's jab combo consists of a punch, a kick, then a rapid flurry of close-range splatter shot fire. There might or might not also be a single-hit finisher. Research was inconclusive, but if there is, I don't see it getting used much, because these rapid shots serve the important purpose of applying ink to anyone caught in them. I can see this being a key part of their arsenal, as a go-to punish against uninked opponents and a quick disruptor that gets some momentum going. For their forward tilt, a simple horizontal swing with a splatter shot to try and club anyone sitting too close. Seems like it's alright as far as tilts go and should get the job done, though it does seem to be a deal slower than most close-range forward tilts are. The Inkling's up tilt is a bit more interesting. A flip kick that wouldn't look out of place in a breakdance routine. Guess they heard the flip kicks are all the rage in Smash. This move's got some nice vertical reach on it that'll make it good at hitting approaches and catching landings, but it's actually pretty weak on its own unless it hits someone who's got ink on them. Could end up changing by release, but right now it seems more like a utility move than anything remarkable. And now we're going to go all in on the breakdancer motif with a down tilt that speaks for itself. It's got 2 hits to it like the animation suggests, and seems to reach pretty far, but the length of the animation means this one's probably going to be purely for spacing and not starting combos. Then for their dash attack, the Inklings quickly switch back to their humanoid form and throw out a tackle. It's not very strong currently, but it does come out pretty fast. Combined with the Inkling's speedy ground mobility, it ought to make for some interesting mix-ups where you can throw out either a dash attack or dash grab at the last minute and force opponents to figure out which one it'll be. If these moves have seemed kinda basic so far, then have I got news for you. The Inkling's smash attacks let them cheat a little and whip out other weapons beyond their default splatter shot. So much for following the rules of Turf War, guys. Their forward smash is a charged swing of an ink brush. This move has much better range than most of the Inkling's normals, but it's got some startup to it and is actually pretty weak for a smash attack damage-wise unless you hit someone who has ink on them. Set it up right though, and it's got some good knockback and ought to serve as a useful kill option. Just be careful of your ink supplies, since every use of this move costs some of it. Their up smash has them take out a blaster and fire it straight overhead. This one's got a launcher hitbox at the start that knocks anyone standing right in front of you into the main blast. Unlike most of this moveset, it's got power to spare, but it seems difficult to hit with unless you set it up, and its ink cost is significant. Seems kinda like the Villagers up smash in style and function. Then the Inkling's down smash has them pick up a slosher and hurl ink in front of and then behind them. It's got a moderate ink cost and similar range to the ink brush, with a quicker startup but higher commitment. There's a sweet spot on the slosher itself and a weaker sour spot on the splattering ink, though even the sweet spot's damage isn't anything to write home about under most circumstances. Another situational move, this one will at least have some use for covering rolls and getup options. Worth mentioning that all 3 of these smashes apply varying amounts of ink to anyone they hit, so even if you don't get a KO, they'll still increase your odds of your next big hit finishing the job. We're back to basics for the Inklings air game, but by no means does basic mean boring. Their neutral air is a mid-air breakdancer spin that hits on both sides, and you thought we were done with that motif. It pulls off its role of providing defensive coverage, but it's a little slower than you'd expect and not all that powerful unless it's hitting someone with a lot of ink on them. Then their forward air is giving me war flashback to Smash 4 Diddy, not gonna lie. Fortunately, this drop kick has more reasonable range and startup, and seems to still be pretty useful without being nice spammable like its predecessor. Combined with the general decrease to landing lag across the board, and I think we'll see this one used occasionally in neutral and as a combo starter, maybe even a combo extender at low percents. The Inkling's back air is a quick turnaround swing of the splatter shot, and I mean quick. This one's actually their fastest aerial. A passable spacing tool with some surprising knockback, it's held back a bit by dealing much lower damage than you'd expect. Something you can get around if you hit someone fully inked, but be wary outside of that. We're back to styling for the up air, a 1-2 spin kick that looks cool and covers above you. It's got nice reach, but its damage is merely okay, and once again, it's slower to come out than you'd think. I guess the best comparison would be like Fox's up air, but slower and weaker yet with larger hitboxes. Things take a turn for the brutal with the Inkling's down air, a downward slam with the splatter shot that spikes just like you'd think it would. Has some heft to it, but yet again, it's pretty damn slow. In fact, in the E3 build, it seems to be frame 16, which makes it comparable in startup and size to Smash 4 Falco's down air, and we know how well that went over among his fans. This move's probably still a bit better than that due to being disjointed and hitting inked opponents harder, but as is, well, I'm not sure I'd rely on it unless you read someone's air dodge off stage. You've probably caught on that these aerials are flawed. None are particularly amazing, and most of them have some big issue holding them back. Between this and the crazy grounded movement they're capable of in comparison, the Inkling's moveset is a clear lean toward grounded combat. Keep that in mind when you're playing as them. Meanwhile, their grab game is interesting in form at least. Their forward throw fires a splatter shot bullet at point blank range. Their back throw has them change to squid form and toss their victim backward. Their up throw has them also change to squid form, this time headbutting their foe to send them skyward. And their down throw just slams their opponent into the ground for a low bounce that leads to potential follow-ups. Much like with Ridley, there's only so much we can piece together about how the Inklings grab game will function in full without being able to lab stuff out. So we'll have to wait to see the full extent of what grab combos are capable of, if any throws are able to kill, etc. Finally, we have the Inkling specials. The glue that brings this moveset together and gives them a style all their own. First off, at neutral, the splatter shot actually gets used for what it's made for. This constant volley of ink deals continuous damage to anyone caught in it, and applies ink to them fast. You can even adjust the angle you shoot at to ensure you hit your target. Believe it or not, this move's actually not built for zoning. The shots deal minimal knockback, very little hit stun at close range, no hit stun at all at anything beyond close range, and you can't even move while you're firing. Put it all together, and what we're looking at here is a move built more for doing chip damage and quickly inking opponents while they're vulnerable. It's got a more specific role than what you'd think at first, but it appears to perform that role very well. For their side special, the Inklings whip out a splat roller and charge ahead. Any ground you cross gets covered in ink of your color, and any enemies you run into get buried in your wake. You can bail out of the attack at any point during the charge, and quickly enough to make it disturbingly easy to follow up on buried opponents with even half-charged smashes before they can break out. Apparently, you can even throw the roller out in midair and still bury opponents if they're on the ground when you hit them. And if that wasn't enough, anyone not on your team gets slowed down by the ink trail you leave behind, decreasing their run speed noticeably, bending the stage surface to your whims like something out of Rivals of Ether. Not gonna lie, this one feels overpowered right now. Unless the roller gets rebalanced before release, it's set to be a centralizing point of the Inklings moveset, to where how well a given character can work around it may single-handedly make or break their matchup with them. Good if you're a squid kid, but the rest of us might be better off crossing our fingers and hoping for nerfs. Or hoping the new perfect shield mechanics and the fact that this move requires a lot of ink and doesn't work if you're out can keep it in check. Fortunately, the Inklings up special seems more reasonable. The super jump is modified from Splatoon to cover less great of a distance, but the premise of going into squid form and launching somewhere else is kept intact. This move deals minor damage on startup and also when you land, and it's got a minor win box during the launch part, but this is definitely a recovery move first and foremost, with the ability to knock enemies away just being a defensive measure. Notably, this is the Inkling's only special that doesn't cost ink to use. A smart design decision, since it'd kinda suck if you got sent off stage while out of ink and you found yourself unable to recover or replenish your ink so that you could. Then the Inkling's down special pulls out a splat bomb sub-weapon to do its thing. The distance you throw these pyramid-shaped explosives depends on how long you hold B. Tap it for a little soft toss, press it longer to throw it further, or hold it down to send the bomb all the way across the stage. The distance thrown is a sliding scale and not just a few set spots, so there's a lot of flexibility for where you can place them if you get a feel for the timing. The bomb explodes a short time after it's thrown, and it has a pretty big blast radius, deals significant damage, and applies a lot of ink to anyone who gets caught. But splat bombs also cost a lot of ink to use, so make it count. Splatoon has a lot of special attacks that work well as final smashes, and the one Sakurai and crew chose was none other than the Killer Whale. Backed by the power of a smash ball, the Inklings plant down a giant megaphone and unleash a deafening sound wave directly forward. It's sort of like Samus's final smash in function, with a couple added bonuses. Anyone who gets hit and manages to survive will end up covered in ink just like in Splatoon, and once the whale goes off, you actually have free roam to move around. The perfect opportunity to send anyone you can flying into the blast for a finishing blow. Overall, the Inklings fight with an odd mix of mix-ups, stage control, and resource management. Inkling players will want to use their exceptional grounded movement to keep opponents on their toes while also utilizing their tools to claim as much space as possible. Just like a turf war, get it? Limiting the enemy's ability to move around and keeping them covered in ink as often as possible will let you overcome their moveset's surface level shortcomings, build momentum, and steamroll your way to victory. The Inklings look to be a unique, flashy, and, dare I say it, fresh new addition to Smash. Gotta say, the Smash devs ended up going in a very different direction with the character concept than what I envisioned. But that's the beauty of it, I guess. There was more than one option here that worked, more than one right answer. Competitively, I think the nature of their kit means at launch the Inklings will either be way up in top tier or really lackluster, with little room in between. But give the devs some time and a few balance patches, and I think they'll hit a point that feels just right. So, how'd I do? I've watched a lot of Splatoon gameplay, but I haven't actually had the chance to take the games for a spin myself, so I took extra precautions to make sure I was getting everything right. If this analysis has you hooked, I have a ton of other Smash content and even some other stuff you might find interesting. I even have my own Inkling character concept from almost 2 years ago to compare and contrast with the real deal. Dates back to even before the Switch was revealed, if you can believe that. And a mini concept from late last year that updated things a little but still ended up different from the canon moveset. Speaking of Challenger approaching, look forward to it coming back very soon. We're going to be redoing a character concept from a previous episode for someone who's in dire need of an update and a signal boost. Special thanks to Max Ketchum, whose first-hand information about the E3 build was good for cross-referencing stuff. Thanks to Shofu, Duncan Knee Deep, and Rogers Base for allowing me to use their video footage for visual aid. Quick shout out to the Smash Ultimate Inkling Discord group for answering some questions I had about certain details. And thanks as usual to Voyager for doing his thing with the graphics. And a very special thanks to my patrons, who've helped keep the channel going despite the difficult situation I've been in. If you feel compelled to lend a hand, and get some rewards back for doing so, check out the video description or just wait for the end screen to kick in. So, what do you think of the Inklings so far? Do you like how Splatoon as a whole is being handled in Smash? What if we end up seeing Splatoon reference Smash now in return? What about a Melee vs Smash 4 Splatfest? On second thought, let's not. And so, until next time.